the throw, pressure coming. On the roll, looking deep, jump ball, caught, touchdown! Malik Turner, as Delano Hill jumped up for that one short. Turner plucks it out of the air, and Illinois on the board, 43 yards from George to Turner.
And welcome into Illini Drive, your home on the way home for Illini Sports, Mondays to Fridays at 6 o'clock. We're happy that you guys are tuning in with us. Plenty of Illini football talk to come, as well as a little Chicago Cubs talk with the World Series starting tomorrow, and then we'll wrap up the show with a little talk about our good friend Brett Lerner, who just a year ago yesterday passed away. He used to be a member of this Illini Drive team. We miss him dearly, so we'll tell some stories about him and share some old sound bites from when he sat behind this microphone to talk to you guys on your way home from work. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. If you want to call into the show at any time, you can give us a call, 217-337-1071. We'd love to take your calls to talk whatever.
Illini football. Yes, call or text.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that you can text. You can also text us at that same number, 217-337-1071.
Send producer man Will Gerard a nice message, piece of encouragement or something.
Oh, yeah, I'd appreciate that, for sure.
He's over there behind the computers, kind of off by himself. So give him some love. Throw him some love.
Yeah, get your phones out, people. Start thumbing away.
Not if you're behind the wheel, but if you're not behind the wheel.
Oh, that's a good point.
If you're in the passenger seat.
That's a good point. How do we feel about people calling while they're driving? I'm okay with that.
Hands-free, so it's legal, as long as it's legal.
Yeah, just hands-free. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Have your passenger dial it up, and then you go.
Yeah, you go. Kind of like Michigan went to town on Illinois this weekend.
They went, yes. They came, they saw, and they
didn't
quite easily conquered.
Illinois went there.
Well, they still had to get to the field from wherever they reside.
This is true. 41-8, of course, the Wolverines in the first Illini-Michigan matchup since 2012. 41-8, thumping, I would say.
Certainly forgettable.
Didn't cover, interestingly enough.
Goodness.
After all the talk of, this is the biggest spread that Illinois has had. Illinois was the biggest underdog in this game that it's been in 25 years.
They covered the spread. Is that a moral victory? Let's start there.
Maybe. They converted a 2-point conversion, which was kind of good, I guess.
Yeah, if anybody on the Illini football team Pete Rosed the game, then maybe it's a moral victory.
We'll assume they didn't, but yes. I don't know. Who did we like in this game? Let's go positive first. Of course, Jeff George played. What do you think of his initial foray into college football? Tough to start your career with your first start against the nation's #1 defense.
Yeah, he didn't do a whole lot, obviously. I think he was very nervous. I mean, the one throw to Malik Turner that was way downfield that they actually connected on
I think it was a great catch.
It was a great catch. It was an okay throw.
Yeah.
Great catch. I mean, that's the #1 passing defense in the league or in the nation, and not to mention a top 5 or 6 rushing defense. So it's not like you can get the running game going to open up the passing game. They weren't running the football at all. They were only averaging 3.3 yards a carry. So it's like, what do you even do against that good of a defense? And even some of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten have struggled mightily against Michigan. Nobody's been putting points up against this team. I mean, Wisconsin only put up 7.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you think, well, statistically he was bad. The eye test, he wasn't much better. But at the same time, I think, I don't know, when you think about the defense they were going up against, you got to hand it to the kid for at least, he continued to fight. He continued to play with passion. You're out there in front of 111,000 people. I mean, we as people who talk about sports and, anybody at home, we can't even fathom
never
that.
Be able to do
no,
that.
and we can't even fathom that. 111,000 people, there are a few times in your life when you're even with that many people in that small of an area. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
That's just ridiculous. 111,000 people plus this gigantic band that's playing in your ear. I mean,
and not to mention the 300-pound guys running at you trying to take your head off.
When your offensive line's not doing a very good job of getting in their way, not to mention. I mean,
admirable effort.
Yeah, admirable effort, and I love the way he got fired up after that touchdown, went and ran after Malik Turner, and so overall, I would say an honorable performance. Was he great? Certainly not. Is that defense great? Absolutely. I mean, maybe one of the best college football's ever seen. So honorable performance, but nothing to write home about.
Yeah, I thought that the one thing in particular that I really liked about his play, and again, I agree. I think there was just a lot of miscommunication. You could see receivers missing routes. People dropping footballs. He didn't put it on point in several different instances. But one thing I really, really liked, when you look at sort of like how a young passer develops, he stepped up in the pocket. He stepped up in the face of the rush and threw the ball. Now, there were a lot of incompletions, but if you look at like the worst thing to be as a young quarterback is sort of afraid or unsure of what you're doing, and he seemed very sure. Now, I made a lot of mistakes in that, but sort of like if you're gonna go and make a mistake, make it 100%, like be going 100% when you make the mistake, and it really seemed that he was doing that. And that's how you learn is, you know, not, okay, I'm going 50% because I'm worried I don't know what I'm going to do or I'm going to get hurt or whatever. Go 100%, make your mistake if you're Jeff George. You know, Illinois is not favored to win this game by any stretch, so go make your mistakes at 100% and learn from them. Watch this tape and take it back. And I think Lovey pointed out today, you expect a jump from the first to second start if you're a quarterback, you know, in college, growing up in front of our eyes like this. So whether he starts against Minnesota, we don't know. The whole injury situation is quite a in a situation, but yeah, it's safe to say I think when we see his second start, I bet you there will be some improvements that he'll have made.
And you mentioned what Lovey said. He didn't have any specific statistics to quantify that statement, but he said traditionally we see this time and time again. There's a massive jump in performance between the first start and the second start, and he brought up a few things as to why. You know, he said, first of all, there's all these nerves that go along with it, and then there's also just you can't really replicate game speed and that type of action, and you certainly can't replicate playing in front of 110,000 people.
Right.
So he
against the best defense in the country.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty tough first start. So Lovey said you usually see that jump, and even, I mean, naturally you'd see a jump because whatever defense that he has to go up against next in his career, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier an opponent than Michigan was. But yeah, I think Lovey's right of just that idea of not having to worry about the same amount of nerves and just little communication things. And I can't even imagine just standing there, like you said, with a bunch of 300-pound guys coming at you. A little different than high school.
Seriously. Well, and yeah, I mean, the last action that he got in the game against Murray State, I believe, for like a minute. I'm not sure if he even threw a pass. And then prior to that, his last experience was in high school, right? Indiana Class 6A or whatever it was. So, yeah, I mean, definitely it's interesting. And sort of going forward, it is going to be quite interesting to see how the quarterback situation plays itself out this week leading into the Minnesota game because Chase Crouch and Wes Lunt were both ruled out for Michigan. So, like, they weren't, like, on the sideline in pads. Like, they were out. Now, we did not know Chase Crouch was going to be out. You might have speculated it based on the way he, you know, kind of hurt his shoulder, we think, against Rutgers.
But it would have been difficult to speculate because they brought him to the press conference on Monday, and they never bring injured players.
And Lunt was in pads for practice on Tuesday, so a little mind games from Mr. Lovey.
He doesn't like to talk about injuries.
Yeah, and today he just said, I'm not going to tell you, you know, what's going on. But we did get this answer, and this is what I think is interesting. This is where I was going with this. He said, when asked, sort of, do you know where your quarterbacks are? Like, do you have a good assessment of it? You're not going to tell us, right? He said, no, I'm not going to. But we have a very good idea of, like, where our quarterbacks are. So that means that they are game planning for someone. We just don't know who it is.
I think there's a good chance it's Jeff George Jr. again. I don't know. I mean, because I was shocked on Saturday when I only see Jeff George coming out there in pads. So I guess if I see Wes Lunt in pads again this week, what I'm saying is I won't then assume he's starting after what happened last week.
Clearly, we shouldn't do that, yeah.
I mean, because maybe you're just trying to get him good reps and keep him fresh, but at the same time you're knowing. And it's also maybe a media ploy of just, look, Wes is in pads. He's going to go on Saturday. And it doesn't do a whole lot against Michigan because they're going to trounce you no matter what. And but it's a little different against a team like Minnesota. Maybe you want to have Wes out there in pads, but come Saturday, you know, you had game planned for Wes or Chase, and out comes Jeff George. That might make a difference.
I'm actually curious about that. I hadn't heard whether Harbaugh gave any sort of answer to, like, was it a surprise to see Jeff George? You know what I mean? Like, I don't
even know if it matters.
Well, right. I kind of wonder. We should find that at some point. Maybe we could talk about that on Wednesday, whether it did make a difference or not for them. But otherwise, this team just did not play very well. I mean, Malik Turner was probably the lone bright spot. Another big catch. He's shown his ability to make plays against people.
Yeah, we're starting to realize that that's a true NFL caliber talent there.
Yeah, it's kind of how Geronimo Allison was last year. You know, I mean, he gets double teamed, so the sort of yardage and catches numbers wise aren't great. But when you look at sort of the plays he makes and the plays that he also makes plays blocking. I don't know if you ever see this, but he's an excellent blocker. Malik Turner, definitely above average in terms of blocking on the exterior. If you look at some of the blocks he can throw, and so yeah, I think totally an NFL caliber, but there's just a void after him in the receiving core.
Yeah, and it is. I think it's been a lot of fun to watch Malik develop. I mean, he has that frame at 6'3", over 200 pounds.
His hands are also. He's got like the big long hands.
Yeah, kind of Geronimo Allison like.
Yeah, that really work for receivers.
And he's made a couple ridiculous catches this year. I mean, it's not quite Odell Beckham level, but you get that feel of like he can catch what's the seemingly uncatchable. And then he's been a tremendous route runner. I mean, even against really good defenses, you saw it against Michigan, him get open a couple of times against some of the best cornerbacks in all of the land.
Right.
And then also against North Carolina, pretty good secondary there too. He got open the one time in the end zone on an incredible route. So I think just time and time again, he's proved to us he's no slouch, and I think that's been cool. But as you mentioned, after that, it's just it's blah.
It'll be really interesting. Not that I'm predicting this, because at this point it's a total question mark. But the status of Mike Dudek for next year, because if he's any semblance of what he once was, which we really have no way of knowing and no way of predicting. But if he was, hypothetically, you got Turner as a senior, you got Dudek as a junior, or whatever he is, sophomore. I can't even remember.
Yeah, sophomore.
Technically, he basically probably would be a sophomore. So, I mean, he gets another year at the back end. And those are two threats. If you get the Mike Dudek of 2014, I mean, you got two real threats, one on the outside and one on the inside. And I think it'll be whoever that quarterback ends up being, because that's the conversation after this year, is really who ends up being that quarterback for this sort of interim transition years here where Lovey's bringing in his recruits. I think they'll potentially have some targets to throw to. They got some young guys, too, who I think have the athleticism and the hands to be able to play in the Big Ten. It's just going to be a question of development.
And you are listening to Illini Drive on WPGU 107.1, brought to you by the Illinois Fighting Illini. For tickets and information on the Illini, visit fightingillini.com or call 1-866-ILLINI-1. Once again, on the web at fightingillini.com or call 1-866-ILLINI-1 for more ticket information.
You're also listening to us in part because of the Hub.
The Hub?
New South 1st Street, 601 South 1st, corner of 1st and Healy over there in Champaign. New sports bar. Great food, great drink, great fun. Got all that stuff at the Hub. Big TV, great TV. Great. It's got to be a great place to watch the World Series this week. I'm telling you right now.
Huge TVs. Just huge.
Huge TVs.
It is a
That
huge...
was either Donald Trump or Ryan Wilson in our studio.
That was
I'm
me.
not totally sure which it was.
Yeah, I actually got a text from a buddy this weekend. He's like, I don't know what he does with his life, but he's like, hey, man, it was like 11 o'clock. He's like, hey, man, there's this new bar on campus called The Hub. They got this huge TV. But he's like talking all about, I was like, I already know, I've been there. But in text, like, we got to go. Let's just watch college football all day from now until 7, then we can watch the NLCS. And I'm like, I have things to do, but that does sound like a great plan.
Life to live. Well, if you have free time on a weekend, I would suggest you get over there. I think we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll transition more to Minnesota. Work off those extra pounds we gained at Michigan, and maybe see if Illinois gets a win this weekend with homecoming.
Absolutely. You are listening to Illini Drive on WPGU 107.1. We'll be back in just a minute.
This is Clark Kellogg of CBS Sports, and you are listening to the Illini Drive. Enjoy.
For us, just knowing what goes into homecoming, what it means, a lot of our people, coming back, we as a football team, we want, for a lot of them, this will be the only time they'll get a chance to really see us play. So you want to put, our best product on the football field as much as anything. Then we have a lot of distinguished, I'm talking just not our famous alums, but just people that really love our university. And I know part of them having a successful homecoming weekend is how their football team performs.
And that was Just
the loveliest of Smiths.
Yeah, just Lovey having a great time, as always, at today's press conference. Just offering imaginative, colorful, inspirational commentary each week, Mondays at 1 o'clock, live from Memorial Stadium. I'm completely kidding. Those press conferences have gotten so bad. I mean, at least they're not bad.
They're just very slow.
Yeah, they're not bad the way that like Tim Beckman was bad or Bill Cubitt was asking for a job. They're just bad in the way that it's like, Lovey's not giving us anything. Yeah. No matter what you ask.
In his opinion, those are going great.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh, I know. No matter what you asked him today, his answer was, we're a 2-5 football team, which means we're not very good, but we're improving. But we're a 2-5 football team, so we're not very good.
Yeah.
Like somebody asked him, you mentioned this before the show, somebody asked him about if he'd be watching, in a real naive way, will you be asking or watching any sports tomorrow, Lovey?
This was at the end, like wrap up, like no one's, like we're like shuffling papers, getting ready to go.
The implication, of course, being the World Series. And Lovey's like, oh, what's on tomorrow night? And he's like, the World Series, Lovey. And Lovey's like, we'll be cheering for the Cubs, but not watching because, we're a 2-5 football team. We're not very good. We're improving. It's like, come on, Lovey, have a little fun, my man.
I mean, it was almost like, I don't know. I do wonder, and I'm not a Chicago guy, so I can't speak to this really with that much experience, but I do wonder if the experience in Chicago really toughened him in terms of not letting anything slip, because who knows, someone writes a thing about Lovie Smith is going to be watching the Cubs instead of preparing for, I think that's ludicrous, but
crazier things have been said.
I suppose it's worth noting we're on UPTV on Wednesdays. You can watch us live re-air 9 o'clock. Yes.
Yes.
No Jeff Omer today, so that we upped our handsome quotient. Jeff brings us down sometimes.
Yeah, Jeff Omer is day to day with
the Urbana City Council. He's covering Urbana City Council
with an upper body injury. Day to day, we will update you as to his status as the week goes along. We expect him to be back Wednesday. See, I hope Lovey's listening. See how I give injury information? I'm telling you that Jeff is day to day. We might see him Wednesday.
But opposing radio shows are game planning based on knowing Jeff is day to day now. You just gave away all of our
Jeff
intel.
is a game time decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. We did just give away big secrets to WDWS and to ESPN. I mean, now
Mike are listening, and now know that they can game plan against us.
The Colin Cowherd show, whatever that's
Cap
called.
And Haw. They don't even do that anymore.
Yeah, but they're listening.
Yeah.
So all our big competitors tuning in to know when will Jeff be back.
Now that we're online, anyone can be listening to us.
Yeah. If you're online, give us a call.
You could be in Antarctica.
217-337-1071. You could be in Uncle Arctica, too.
Nice. That was a great joke. 8 out of 10 would recommend to a friend. Is there a president of Antarctica or some sort of...
No, it's not its own country. It's divided up. So several Western nations, and probably China too, have claims on certain parts of Antarctica, which is basically just like where they build their research stations.
Okay, I was going to say, do they go out there and draw a line? Like, no, that's our 6 feet.
That's our iceberg.
Yeah. No, that's our big snowball.
Yeah, no, they
got like the Ruskies and United States just firing off shots at each other over a couple of big old snowmen.
Real Cold War.
Oh, absolutely. There's probably snowmen there that have been standing for ages.
That would be kind of fun. Like,
I don't know about
go to Antarctica, build a snowman, go back to see like if it's still there.
Like 108 years later, like the Cubs World Series drought, might this snowman still be living? I don't know if you call it living.
Kind of
standing.
Yeah, just hanging out. To bring you into homecoming, let's get back to the Illini. To bring you into homecoming coverage, I'm going to present you with a fun fact. Lovey talked there about, in the bump, you heard him talking about distinguished graduates of this university, which there are quite a few. Fewer in football and more in the arts and sciences.
Hugh Hefner.
Academic, or even...
To name a big one.
Or even, that's it, he's a Daily Illini alum, Hugh Hefner. Used to drew cartoons.
He could be listening.
Yeah, he was like an assistant sports editor or something.
Might be watching.
But but I just wanted to throw out my most interesting the alum that I think is like that I just kind of like, because you go and look in the Union at all of those portraits of famous.
Those
alums.
are cool.
My favorite is the guy who invented the light emitting diode, the LED. He has an LED in his portrait with him. It's really funny. He's got like this like super old guy with glasses, and he has some like medal. Some scientific medal for inventing the LED.
For being smart.
Yeah. And then he also has like a little red LED
That's
I
incredible.
love it. So that's
Just
my.
looks like
I
he's
don't
holding
even,
up a
to
Christmas
be honest,
light.
I'll look up his name. I don't even remember his name.
Yeah, just Google that guy from Illinois with the little LED
Yeah, the
light.
LED guy from Illinois. But as distinguished graduates go, it's a good week for Illinois. Tatiana McFadden will be the Grand Marshal of the parade. She, of course, is quite distinguished. Ryan's our resident Paralympic sports expert. So if you'd like to know anything about Tatiana McFadden, you can call in. You could text Ryan or call and tweet and
Do the thing that you
do the
young
thing
people do today.
with your phone. But all in all, I think it'd be a fun week.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun week. A lot of the players.
Someone's listening. It says LED guy is Ben Holenyak. That's courtesy of Abby Sabota, who works here at the DI. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Nick Holenyak. Okay, now I'm not sure. We'll get
Okay,
back to you.
she seems to be the minister of misinformation. Abby, if you're still listening, I want a confident answer from you.
Nick Holenyak.
Nick Holenyak.
And I'm not sure if he invented it, but he was an electrical engineer, engineering grad of Illinois. His doctoral advisor was John Bardeen. Of course, the Bardeen Quad is named after John Bardeen. So there's Illinois connections.
A
Anyway,
good piece of Illinois.
football,
trivia.
Illini Drive,
foot game,
sport ball.
sport ball.
What do you want to see out of this Minnesota game?
You know, I want to see that the Illinois, obviously against Michigan, you didn't see the team that we've. The team hasn't been good all year, but at the time
You did see this Illinois team against
I guess you
Michigan.
did see the Illinois team. I want to see the team that we've seen during the good times. What we saw for about a half of the Rutgers game, what we saw for a few quarters of the Purdue game. Even back to week 1 against Murray State, if you can even count that. I just want to see, or even the team that
It
we saw.
counts on the schedule.
Yeah, or even the team that we saw for a few quarters against Nebraska. I want to see that team that did those things that Lovey and his staff talked about all off season. First off, I want to see them run the ball well with all three backs.
Please.
Kendrick Foster, Reggie Corbin, Keyshawn Vaughn have had, I think, all very good seasons. After a rough start from Keyshawn Vaughn,
I wouldn't say very good. I would say Foster has had a very good season. I would say the other two have been acceptable.
I think Vaughn's shown some promise in terms he broke that one run against Michigan at least.
But grading Vaughn based on his preseason expectations, he's supposed to be a bell cow.
He's supposed to be the man.
Overall, though, they've had, as a unit, I think they've had a good season, and I would like to see them have a very good game on Saturday against what is a tough test on defense. As far as from the quarterback position, I think it's just no matter who it is, Lunt, Crouch, Jeff George, the big problem has been ball security. I want to see them hold on to the ball. I mean, it sounds simple, but
their turnover ratio is pretty good.
Well, but Chase Crouch hit through.
With these two guys,
the timeliness of turnovers has been bad.
Sure, yeah, okay, that's fair.
And the only reason their turnover differential is so good is because they had 5 takeaways against Rutgers.
All of those turnovers.
It was funny because the story was like, wow, Lovey's defense, they can't get any takeaways, and then all of a sudden after the Rutgers game, Lovey mentions that they have one of the best turnover differentials in the country. It's like, well, no kidding, you played one of the worst teams.
Didn't they have no turnovers against UNC or Western Michigan?
Yeah,
or they didn't create any turnovers.
Yeah, they didn't create any turnovers.
They had no takeaways.
They turned the ball over.
Right.
Wes literally dropped the ball a couple times. Yes. So yeah, anyway, ball security I think is important. I'd like to see them get the running game going, and then on defense,
stop them.
Just get off the flipping field. I mean, that's my thing. I had this up here. Yeah, Michigan was on the field for 41 minutes and 23 seconds of that game. That's more than 2/3 of the game. Get off the field.
That was a problem last year, too.
Yeah, we saw it against Western Michigan and North Carolina as well. And then again against Nebraska, they had like a 14-minute drive. It's just they cannot get off the field. They cannot get off on third down.
Third down, I was going to say, third down conversions is a big part of that. It just seems like sometimes they can't, they get these great athletes that they have in the pass rush, and they get them out there and they get a tackle for loss on first down, but then third down rolls around and it's like there's no one to be seen in front of him in terms of the quarterback, and he's completed 15-yard pass, and it's you undo all the good you did.
We even saw it against Michigan. Michigan converted on 7 of 14 third downs. I mean, come on, you just got to get off the field.
And I'm sure several of those, if I had to guess, a couple of those non-conversions were in garbage time without Wilton Spade as the quarterback.
And it's not like all these third downs they're giving up are the 3rd and 1s and 3rd and inches. They've given up so many 3rd and double-digit yardage. So I think from the defense, that's the biggest thing for me. I mean, even more than takeaways. I guess the defense is starting to prove that they can take the football away. You're starting to see the fruit of that labor a bit. But from week 2 of the season against North Carolina to now, I think the biggest issue defensively has been getting off the field on third down. They talked about it at length on that Monday press conference after the North Carolina game. Got to get off the field on third down. We got to do a better job of that. And from that time on, we haven't really seen any improvement in that area. And you mentioned before the show, Peter, that they have to win this game against Minnesota. If they want to win this game, they got to get off the field. This is a pretty good offense they're going up against.
Well, and I said had to just because it's so lethargic. It feels so slow around this program right now. You know, your only Big Ten win being against Rutgers, the potential of that as sort of the season is just, again, Lovie Smith's got to have time. He's got to get his guys. I wouldn't walk that timeline back at all. But, I mean, just for a little shot of energy, just for a little bit of energy drink, a little bit of coffee, whatever you like to get your caffeine, this program needs just a little bit of it. This fan base needs just a little bit of it to get them to continue come through the end of the season, you know, with the gray uniforms, which the players have said they love, by the way.
Those are sweet.
The gray uniforms, the band, all of the alums, the parade, the whole week. They paint the signs on green, or the windows on Green Street, and they do the whole thing. Like, okay, like win it for these people. Like get just a little bit of energy. Illinois has been the homecoming opponent at 3 different away stadiums this year and gotten 1 win and 2 losses. Right, they beat Rutgers and lost to Michigan and Nebraska. They know what a homecoming atmosphere feels like, and they should be amped to have it in their own stadium.
And they know how big of an insult it is to be somebody else's homecoming game. That pretty much, if you're somebody else's homecoming game, you're saying that in the month of whenever they like to have their homecoming, either September or October, this is our most winnable game. That's what you're saying. And especially to be Rutgers is, I mean, they're like, well, these are the only guys we got a chance against all year, so we better make it Illinois. And then, you know, against Nebraska and Michigan to lose on homecoming. So I think all of that just serves as motivation to, okay, now we have our own homecoming in front of a big crowd. We got a bunch of, you know, distinguished alumni in the crowd, plus some, you know, former NFL players. It's a big deal.
All right.
Get the job done for a lot of people who bleed orange and blue.
Now, to be fair, this team has only been out of 1 game in the Big Ten, and that's the Michigan game, right? The other 3 games, they were in those games to win those games. Nebraska, you fall apart late. Purdue, you fall apart late, obviously very late in overtime, stuff like that. Rutgers, you win. So it's not that I'm not saying that I don't think that this program is on the skids or anything. Like, again, there's nothing drastic here, but like a win would just be a good, like, you have to, even in seasons like this that are transitions, and it's a lock pretty much to be a losing season and to be not up to what people want on a regular basis. Like, even if you have patience, you can still want a little bit of instant gratification. And I think that they need that. I think right now they need just a little bit of instant gratification. Here's an indication that we're doing all right.
Of course, and especially, I mean, we all know the timetable and that this is a team that is just taking the first step to take some bigger steps in years to come. But with that in mind, you also look around the Big Ten and you see all these other programs that are taking big strides. Even with Minnesota, this is not as good. This is a much
State just made it into the top 25.
Yeah, this is a much better Minnesota team than we've seen the last couple of years when Illinois beat them or at least had a chance to win. Now you see a very tough Minnesota team coming to town who played a competitive game against Penn State, a competitive game against Iowa, trounced Maryland, and then barely squeezed one out against Rutgers. I don't know how that happens, but still a team that's doing much better, along with a lot of other programs that are improving, as Lovey likes to say, around the conference. So I think you're right. I think you need this win. And it's not going to come easy because this Minnesota team's better than the teams we've seen in years past.
Yeah, and we'll talk more sort of X's and O's against Minnesota probably Wednesday for sure. But I do think, my biggest thing for this game is not any position group in particular. It's not any unit in particular. They just have to win. Like, I think the sloppiest win would still be a very satisfying one.
Yeah, and it's going to take a lot of moving parts to do their job a lot better than they're doing right now for them to get that win.
Yeah.
I mean, when Lovey says that every position group needs to improve, he's not kidding.
He's not. No, and he's using that as it's a bit of a throwaway line, but it's not. But it is definitely accurate.
We're going to go to a quick break. When we get back, a little Cubs talk to come as the World Series begins tomorrow, and then we'll wrap up our show with that 4th segment talking about our dear friend Brett Lerner, who passed away a year ago yesterday. We miss him more than words can say. We wish he was still talking with us on the air here at WPGU, but we'll do a little tribute to him as it is just the 1-year anniversary since he passed. So we'll be back on Illini Drive here in just a couple minutes.
Hey, this is Susanna Collins with Comcast Sportsnet, and you're listening to the Illini Drive.
A lot of things happened today, and they were all great, and they were all thrilling, and they were all dramatic. Too bad we couldn't have had a victory that meant a pennant, but that will come. Sure as God made green apples, someday the Chicago Cubs are going to be in the World Series, and maybe sooner than we think.
And it sounds just as good the 1,000th time around. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to that since Saturday.
I'm really glad producer man Will Gerard didn't pull the Joe Buck version of that.
Of course not.
Thank
Couldn't
you.
do it.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, let's talk Joe Buck in a moment because
We don't even have to. I don't think he's worth our time. But that's just me. That's just a personal opinion.
I disagree fervently. But let's talk about what actually matters. The Chicago Cubs have won the pennant, to quote Joe Buck. And that was a great call from Pat Hughes. God, do I love that guy's voice. Just been listening to it since I was a little kid, and there is nothing.
a good voice.
There's nothing better to me than Pat Hughes' voice, and just what a special moment. I mean, I'm gonna shamelessly plug it right now. Read my column in the Daily Illini tomorrow. If you are
plug away.
If you are a Cubs fan, I promise you'll enjoy it. My story of Cubs fandom is not unique in the slightest. There are thousands of others like it, but I think that's what makes it so sweet, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot. Anyway, the Cubs.
Very fun to watch. Let me just throw this in here. As not a
Absolutely.
fan of the Cubs, this is a very fun thing to watch. I think that sometimes you see streaks being broken, losing streaks being broken, and I didn't really care about the Cavaliers breaking their streak for the city of Cleveland. Just for the
I did.
No, I mean, I thought it was an amazing thing, if you look at, LeBron and his legacy and the fact that they beat the Warriors in itself there are a lot of amazing parts to it, but it didn't carry the same emotional value as a spectator. Ryan disagrees. It didn't carry the same emotional value for me, and maybe it's because of the people that I'm close to and the people that I'm around, but I see this Cubs thing as so much more of an emotional moment, of a cultural moment than a sports moment. Like the Cavaliers winning that series, beating the Warriors, breaking Cleveland's no championship streak, that was a sports moment. Cubs potentially winning the World Series would be a moment for history.
I don't think
in a different way. I don't know if you still disagree with me, Ryan, but
yeah, I don't think this has anything to do with baseball, in my opinion. It's just so much bigger than that.
That's kind of what I'm getting to.
Sports is this incredible thing that brings us together in ways we can't describe, no doubt, in any sport across a lot of teams. But it's different with the Cubs. It's just not about baseball. It's about grandma or grandpa or mom or dad or your husband or wife or friend or whoever that was a lifelong fan and can't be there to watch it with you anymore.
Right.
There's just so many fans that kept the faith.
Yeah.
And
the fact that, so many people could have been born and died and lived a very full life and never see the Cubs, even make it to the World Series, is a really, I don't know. I mean, that's...
Could have lived through World War I, the Depression, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam,
Watergate.
Saw the Cubs blow it in 1969 and again in 84.
Y2K.
Yeah, and then passed away this fall and you never saw it.
Snapchat.
Yeah. Facebook, the internet. I mean, come on. So much has happened.
Cheese Whiz.
Harambe. Just saying.
Harambe.
There you go.
108 years, as to quote our great football coach, are you freaking kidding me? That's a long, long time. And so I think when I say this has nothing to do with baseball, what I mean is all of us Cubs fans have somebody in our heart that we were thinking of during that game that we wish we could have been watching with. And it's so special for all of us. And like I said, I wrote about it in my column, my story's not unique, and that's in my mind, what makes it so special is that there's so many of us that have these stories. I mean, if you scroll through Facebook or Twitter after Saturday's game, and even I've still been seeing the posts today, a couple days later, you see pictures of people with their grandfathers or grandmothers at Wrigley Field when they were a little kid, or, pictures of older folks with their mom or dad, saying, I wish that they could be here to watch this. They would have loved it. How many stories like that have you seen? And it's just so sweet. And I don't think there's a franchise that can even compare to the love and also the faithfulness that's always been around the Cubs. Like, the fans have always had hope. I mean, people, Cleveland hasn't won in 60-some years, but you don't think of Cleveland as the Cleveland fan base the way you think of the Cubs fan base. I mean, the Cubs fan base shows up in late September when they're 30 games out of the division and they have absolutely no chance. They show up, they have a good time, they drink their beer, eat their hot dogs, and they just...
No ketchup, though.
Of course not. And it's just, I don't know, the whole thing that surrounds being a Cubs fan is incredible. And Saturday night brought with it this euphoric feeling that's truly indescribable. I mean, for me, because Will asked me, producer man Will asked me, what did I do when they won? I just fell down. I just fell down. And I didn't know what to do. And I have a good buddy on campus who we've watched a lot of games over the last 2 years with. And we just hugged. And it was like a homecoming hug on homecoming week. It was like this, like I hadn't, seen him in ages, and he had survived some massive traumatic event, and it was this incredible embrace, but really a baseball team won a game. But it means so much more than that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you too. Like, in terms of watching sports with the Cubs, it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of us have that same special connection with the people we watch the games with. I mean, with a lot of other teams, you care about the performance of your team, but like when I was watching my friends, it was kind of like it was a sweet moment. I look over and one of my best buddies is crying, and I kind of, to allude to Kevin's point about having someone to watch with. I remember my grandpa watching some really bad Cubs teams, and it kind of makes you think wow. This is something special. Yeah,
I remember when I was a little kid, my dad and I would sit and watch in this hammock together. We had this little portable television that we'd watch on, and it was just honestly, the screen was 2 or 3 inches, and we would watch the first couple innings, we'd fall asleep, and then we'd wake up for the 8th and 9th inning, and those were during some years where the Cubs were really bad, and as I wrote in my column, we don't fit in that hammock together anymore, but since then, we've watched more games than I can count. And so often when I'm sitting and watching a game with him, it has so little to do. I mean, now it has more to do with baseball. But in those years where they were bad, it had nothing to do with baseball.
Yeah, I think that to that, to agree with everything you said, but one, the Red Sox were like that.
Yeah, the Red Sox were like that
before 2004. And I don't know, you might get a White Sox fan arguing that, but there are no White Sox fans here. So I'll speak for the Red Sox fans and say, there are some differences between the Boston fan base and the Chicago fan base. I think Boston and Red Sox fans were more bitter because we had gotten to the World Series and gotten Bucknered and gotten Big Red machined and whatever. The Red Sox had more chances. They've been to the World Series, been to the playoffs more than the Cubs had been during their losing streak. But one thing that really to totally agree with you, there's a feeling of collectiveness. In 2004, I was 9 when the Red Sox won the World Series, and in elementary school, everyone was up the night before watching the game, including the teacher, right? And everyone wore Red Sox shirts that they didn't wash to school the next day. And everyone, was the person that had the shirt the next day after the game was stoked about it. And this level of your grandmother didn't get to see this, your grandfather didn't get to see this. Living through those experiences and everyone is on the same team for once, whether it's the kid you hate in school, because that's the age we were, the kid you hate in 3rd grade, he's also rooting for the Red Sox. So we can bridge that divide a little bit. It's just a really amazing thing.
I can't speak for Kevin, but as a fan, I remember watching that, and that was my introduction to baseball.
Yeah.
And as a Cubs fan, it kind of brought hope, seeing curses are meant to be broken.
Yeah.
So in that way, I remember staying up for those games and it just being a huge deal. And I feel in some ways, Cubs and Sox fans kind of can relate to a similar experience.
Yeah. I will say this. No greater sports moment ever than coming back down 3-0 versus the Yankees. That's all I'm saying. But this would be very, very close, I think.
Yeah.
But, to be fair, we were talking about this on the way over. Cubs could still lose this World Series. This is not a lock. But it's going to be a great, great series and a great story if they do come through.
Yeah. Do we have to go to a break? Should we keep the Cubs talk?
Keep it going.
We could keep it going. We should, we could do a few more minutes of Cubs talk.
Yeah, earlier.
What do you think? So to the baseball, what do you think of their chances?
Yeah, I'm going to try and keep this sort of pertinent to this series as a whole for our people who will be tuning in on Wednesday on UPTV. I think this is it's funny. Peter and I talked about this after the press conference earlier today with Lovey. A lot of people acted as if they won the World Series Saturday night, forgetting that there's, potentially 7 games and you got to win 4 of them against a very, very good Indians team that I believe has been all year way, way underrated. I think this is one of the better pitching staffs in baseball with a bunch of guys that your average baseball fan has never heard of. I think it's one of the best bullpens in the league, and I think just like the Cubs, it's a lineup with essentially no holes. But also, unlike the Cubs, it's a lineup with basically no stars, with the exception of Francisco Lindor, who's a low-key star at that. I mean, how many baseball fans know a lot about Francisco Lindor when, in fact, this guy rakes? I mean, he's a stud. So I just think this Indians team, and then I didn't mention defense. Defensively, they're very solid. So just like the Cubs, I think this is a very complete team led by a great manager in Terry Francona.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Who's been there, done that, and knows a thing or two about ending curses, because Cleveland has their own curses, you mentioned, Peter. So I just think this is such a complete team. So Cubs fans should all take a collective deep breath, sit back and realize...
Buckle down.
Yeah,
this is going to be a series.
This is going to be tough. And if you don't like the Indians or the Cubs, let's say you hate both teams, either team, whatever, but you're a baseball fan, this is going to be a great series to watch. Because in that NLCS, there was some bad baseball being played. I mean, the Dodgers are not a very complete team. I mean, they made some errors that you just don't see at the LCS level. Teams don't get that far into October playing that type of baseball. But this Indians team is well coached, and boy, are they good. And obviously the Cubs are too. So I can't imagine a better matchup for the World Series.
Yeah, I was going to sort of echo your manager point in particular. Can you ask for 2 better World Series managers than Terry Francona and Joe Madden? Like, this can be so fun. Those guys coached so many games against each other in the AL East, but also are just both in their own right terrific game managers, a little unorthodox with some stuff, and could pull something out of the bag that we may not be expecting, and that just makes it for even better. When you don't just have, now they won the World Series, but Ned Yost is a bad manager. Like, the Royals, like, that's stupid. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
want to go stupid, but I understand he's not to the caliber of what we expect in the World Series.
Precisely. I think that Terry Francona and Joe Madden are of the cream of the crop of MLB managers and is very deserving and also potentially very could present us with some fun stuff for the fact that they are in the World Series.
An argument could be made that these are the best 2 managers in baseball. Not saying they necessarily are, but I definitely think the argument could be made. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
You know what argument can also be made?
What's that?
You're listening to Illini Drive on WPGU 107.1.
That's an easy argument.
Brought to you in part by the Illinois Fighting Illini. For tickets and information on the Illini, visit fightingillini.com or call 1-866-Illini-1 on the web, fightingillini.com, or on the telephone device, 1-866-ILLINI-UNO for more ticket information. Notice I brought you that last part in Spanish just because I'm
bilingual.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but we're also brought to you in part by The Hub, right, Kev?
Yeah, we are. The Hub, new sports bar on campus, corner of 1st and Healy. You got to check it out. Great place to watch playoff baseball, college football, NFL football. They got the largest HD television screen in the state of Illinois. As Ryan Wilson said, it is huge. You got to check it out. They got great food, great drink deals all the time. Seriously, it's like a Buffalo Wild Wings on steroids. It's awesome. So go and check it out. But we're going to go to a quick break. When we get back, we'll be remembering our dear friend Brett Lerner, who used to sit behind this very microphone and talk to you all on Monday nights. We miss him dearly. He passed away a year ago yesterday. So we'll do a little bit of remembering our friend Brett to wrap up today's show.
Hey guys, this is Erin Andrews, and you're listening to WPGU 107.1.
And welcome back into Illini Drive. As promised, we're going to play a video that former Illini Drive man Dan Collins put together last year. We played this, I believe, a year ago to the day, right just a couple of days after our good friend Brett Lerner passed away. Dan put together this video, or this audio reel of some of our favorite Brett moments. It's about 6 minutes long, and God almighty, do we miss his voice on these airwaves. So we'll play that short clip, or that 6-minute clip, to remember the great broadcaster that Brett was. Welcome in to Illini Drive. You heard our big intro with the starting lineup. We're running a little thin today, but it's all right. We're going to make do. I'm Brett Lerner, joined by Kevin McCarthy and Dan Collins. Our guys, Joey Gelman and Jeff Omer, out for the day. Happy Labor Day to everyone. We're still here. We're still doing a show, and Illinois football is 1-0, my friends. That was Mason Monheim that you heard kicking off the show. You'll hear more from him later as well. We'll also bring on Daily Illini sports editor Peter Bailey-Wells to help us talk about that interview that he did with Mason Monheim, and he'll join us for some other topics as well. We've got a big show today, and we're going to kick it off with Illinois football's dominant win over Kent State. Almost said from Friday night, but Storms postponed that. Very Illinois football-esque for that game to be postponed until Saturday, but Illinois got the win nonetheless. Guys, let's do show number 2. What do you say?
Defense doing a great job so far here in the second half. Flea flicker, Lunt on first down, over the middle, big play to Desmond Kane. And he's dropped at the 50-yard line to make it a 3-point game. 16-13 as Illinois keeps chipping away.
The reason Lunt had a shot at the end of that game was because the defense held their ground and kept Illinois in the game. And you were down 6 with the ball with a chance to win thanks to your defense. Now, you fumble on the first play, so you don't deserve to win. But point being, the defense bent and broke a few times, but it kept you in the game, which was impressive. I know they let up almost 500 yards, and Iowa's running back had 250, but they kept you in the game. I think I can somewhat confidently say that I would have rather seen any other play in the entire playbook on 3rd and 1. I would have rather seen 4 receivers run Hail Mary routes to the end zone, because at least Lunt's the one throwing the ball. Like, I'm being serious. That was really, really bad. Right. And you were a first down away from being in significant scoring position on the field.
You were about the guy carrying you through that game, and It was a matter of he was on a roll in terms of making sure your offense ran.
Well, and you were one first down away from being into Iowa territory, like significantly into Iowa territory, and that could have changed a lot. And you can't put it on one play.
Oh, no,
went through 18, 19 incompletions again. There were drops again. But that play stood out to me when I was thinking about us talking Illinois football to start off the show today. The first thing I thought was that play was just bad. It was just bad. That's what it was.
And I hate to go straight to that, but it was just so...
No, that's what stuck out in my mind.
Yeah.
And then obviously the fumble.
Good pass to the far side. That is complete. Eddie Royal, touchdown.
Trent, you and I have been talking all weekend about what nice medicine it would be for the Bears offense to get Jay Cutler back.
Well, when we were planning the show, I pushed for us to sneak the Bears in here somewhere, even though there was so much to talk about with Illinois football, just because there's only going to be so many times where we get to talk about Illinois football and the Bears winning in the same weekend. Very few times, I presume, for the rest of the year. So might as well do it while we can. Although Jay Cutler tried so hard to lose that game. He tried so hard to beat Jay Cutler. It was actually amazing.
Smoking Jay.
He played fine. He didn't turn the ball over. He played good enough to be in the game, and I give him credit for playing through the injury. Sure, John Fox, give him more credit, please. But anyways, he threw that interception late in the game, and he said, guys, I'm still Jay Cutler. I had to turn it over once before this game was over, and he tried so hard to lose it. But then, honestly, props to him, because that game-winning drive was pretty impressive. Nice throw on 4th down. Martellus Bennett looked amazing that whole game, and they won. I don't know how many more times they'll win. Few. But they won. I was impressed. Is it really that cool to do? You could do jump around in your house. Just play the song.
I do it in my house.
Just start jumping around. I swear I'm not an Illinois football hater by any measure, but I totally agree with what Jake said at the end when I asked him to pick the game. Because Wisconsin's, I said this against Nebraska, but I think Wisconsin's the significantly better version, so I think it'll hold true. I just don't think Illinois is going to be able to score because, A, they will not be able to run the ball. That's 100%. I can mark that down as a fact because when you can't dominate Western Kentucky's defensive line with your offensive line, then good luck against Wisconsin's D-line and linebackers who blitz a lot and get a lot of sacks. So the run game's off the table, and Geronimo Allison is really good. And we've talked about how there's no other option in the pass game at this time. So with those blitzes, I just think Wisconsin's defense is going to beat up Illinois' offensive line. And then I think He was talking about Wisconsin having offensive line struggles. I think that's so funny talking to us. But point being, he said they're going to have the same line as they did last week, which is where the discrepancies have happened when they've been having to switch starters. But if they have the same group of starters, I'm sure whoever this running back is going to look like the next Melvin Gordon, because I just don't think Illinois has enough depth to stop the run on first, second, and third down consistently up and down the field. I don't think they'll get blown out because Wisconsin's offense isn't that good, but I could see it being like a, 24-10, just because Illinois won't be able to score.
Illinois working with the wind here, but running out of time and deep in their own territory. Lunt throws over the middle, got Allison wide open. 35, and he's got a first down up near the 38-yard line. And the Badgers do what they do. They grind out a win here in Champaign today. Final score as the clock runs out. Wisconsin 24, the Fighting Illini 13.
And welcome back into Illini Drive on WPGU 107.1. And I hope you enjoyed that. Just a few clips of our friend Brett as he passed away a year ago yesterday in a tragic car accident. It's hard to sit behind these microphones since then and not think of him. Peter, you're sitting in the exact chair that he used to sit in, or at least the exact spot. It's a different chair.
Yeah, the stringy chairs
The
over there.
stringy chairs over there, but that's where he used to sit. And the thing about him was he was always in a good mood. He always brought with him a smile to the show. The other thing was he was damn good all the time. I mean, the guy was never off his game. He never had a bad day behind these microphones or in front of a camera. And I remember when he passed, everybody just saying, this is a horrible tragedy and all the things that come with that. But then even, a few weeks later, it's like, well, God, this guy would have been a big flipping deal.
Yeah.
And a year later, that's the first thing that comes to mind is like, God, I mean, number one, I just miss talking about sports with him, but it sucks that I'm not going to get to see him on ESPN one day because I can confidently say I would have easily. And I don't know if I can say that about another person I work with. I don't know if I can confidently say it, but he was that good. He was a student of almost every sport, and then also just incredibly good at articulating whatever point of view. And man, we used to duke it out a bit on this show, but it was always in good fun, and I miss it a lot.
Yeah, I concur, 100%. I think we'll post that segment. You can hear Brett for yourself. Worth pointing out, just the folks that come after us, you're listening to Emageddon after this, 7-8. They're giving away tickets to some band at Fat City, to Neon Indians at Fat City, October 30th. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, I just think that you can't replace something like that totally. So we're thinking about you, Brett.
Yeah, that wraps up today's show. It's been a tough year since Brett's passed, and it was fun to remember him a little bit. So for Brett Lerner, Will Gerard, Ryan Wilson, and Peter Bailey Wells, I'm Kevin McCarthy. We'll talk to you the same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads.